I would say that my experience at the RNC has really shown me, serving the American people. And if I were tapped for this, serving my home state now of Florida, it's a great honor and a great responsibility, obviously. But I would love to be able to go forward and do more. If this is something I'm asked to do, I would seriously consider it. But I have yet to hear from Governor DeSantis, so we'll see what happens.
And that is the RNC co-chair, Lara Trump, with me on Mornings with Maria this week on her interest in stepping into Senator Marco Rubio's seat in the Senate, should he be confirmed as U.S. Secretary of State, the position to be appointed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump is expected to sign several executive orders in his first 100 days to secure the border and tap into America's energy capacity to rein in inflation and spark economic growth. In 2021, President Biden issued 42 executive orders during his first 100 days in the Oval Office, undoing many of Trump's first-term policies, including construction of the southern border wall and the Remain in Mexico program. Joining me now with President Trump's plans in the first 100 days and beyond is Trump Organization Executive Vice President and President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. Don, great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be here.
First off, do you want to see your sister as Senator Trump?
Listen, I think it'd be great. I think she understands our base. She understands the movement. You see what's going on in Florida. I mean, it is a solid red state. We flipped counties that we lost by 30 and 40 points back in 2016. They're now positive Trump. Miami-Dade, we went from minus 30 to plus 10 Republican. I mean, I think that's a mandate if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. I know that you've played a major role in helping to shape President Trump's cabinet. I'd like to know, what is the common theme behind these choices, if there is one?
I think the reality this time is we actually know what we're doing. We actually know who the good guys and the bad guys are. We know who the guys are fake. And it's about surrounding my father with people who are both competent and loyal. They will deliver on his promises. They will deliver on his message. They are not people who think they know better as unelected bureaucrats. And so a big part of that process is just something that we didn't understand in 2016, where he came to Washington, D.C. He had no experience. He didn't know any of the 4,000 people that make up the Plum Book, which are the presidential appointees. So now we have a great understanding of that, and we can have a cabinet that is so powerful in delivering the America First message that the American people clearly voted for on November 5th.
Will you have a specific role in the administration? How do you see as the best way to help serve your father and the nation?
No, I don't want to roll in the administration. I want to be very active until January 20th. I want to make sure the people that surround him are the greatest people we can possibly assemble, the smartest minds. You know, when you look at it, not just this cabinet, but the people who are on the outside, whether it's Elon, Bobby Kennedy obviously being in the cabinet on the health side, Vivek, who you had on earlier in the show. I mean, we have an incredible opportunity, perhaps a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really make a difference with people, minds that you wouldn't otherwise find in government, frankly. It's truly something that's epic. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I just want to make sure that the rest of the cabinet that surrounds my father is able and willing to deliver on that message and that promise to the American people. And when we do, I think we can do incredible things.
Has your father talked about backup plans? I mean, what if some of these people are not confirmed? There's been a lot of backlash over some of them.
Listen, there's always, ideas. We have lists of people. We're not just randomly picking a name out of a hat. We're showing him lists of 10 or 12 people for every position. So we do have backup plans, but I think we're obviously going with the strongest candidates first. Some of them are going to be controversial. They're controversial because they'll actually get things done. The swamp doesn't want that, so we're going to go all in and make sure that those people have the best chance at getting confirmed as possible, because they're the people who are most effective. When you see that kind of backlash, generally speaking, it's because it's a threat to the Uni-Party in Washington, D.C. They don't want to see change. They want it to be business as usual. They don't want to be disrupted. That's their meal plan. That's their ticket. That hasn't worked for the American people. It hasn't served them well. We haven't had the most competent people in government in a very long time, and it's why you've had the disaster. It's also why you saw the response from the American people. Despite the overwhelming majority of the mainstream media and big tech going against my father, the American people spoke, and they spoke loudly.
Yeah, and many of the picks are not traditional names. They don't come from think tanks. They aren't assistants of people who were in power before. So walk us through some of these ideas. Matt Gaetz has certainly sparked lots of conversation, as has Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr. Do you expect Matt Gaetz to face pushback?
I think a lot of them are going to face pushback for the same reasons. Again, they are going to be actual disruptors. That's what the American people want, but Washington, D.C. doesn't want that. They're going to spend a lot of money on it. You know, Big Pharma is going to spend a lot of money like you wouldn't believe, trying to stop Bobby Kennedy from exposing what's going on with Big Pharma and, you know, Big Ag, the poisoning of our kids and our loved ones for years. They've gotten away with it for far too long. It doesn't work. The wealthiest country in the world can't also be the most unhealthy because of what we're doing to our children. So there's going to be pushback. There's going to be a lot of money spent. It will all be artificial, but that doesn't mean we won't have to deal with it, because that's how Washington, D.C. works, Maria.
Yeah. You're seeing reaction all over the place, and there's a real optimism in the air for President Trump and his goals to spark economic growth and get America back to where it is. You were at the UFC fight last night. I saw you all there, and the president took the belt. I know that you had a late night. What kind of a reception did you get?
Honestly, it was epic. You're actually witnessing in real time, Maria, a cultural phenomenon, a cultural shift like we've probably never seen before. Who would have thought? You know, loving your country is actually cool. Fighting for it, fighting for our future and the next generation is actually cool. People finally get it, despite the onslaught from the mainstream media, despite the billions spent by big tech trying to say otherwise. People get it. You know, watching John Jones come over there, and frankly, all of the fighters, they all came over and showed my father respect. I mean, whether they won or lost, Michael Chandler put up a great fight, didn't win in the end, but came up. People are getting it. It's cool to be MAGA. Making America great again is actually really cool. It always was, Maria, but it's always hard to go up against that tide and that money that was spent so aggressively against us. It's no longer working. The American people are aligned. They're unified in putting our country first. They're unified for fighting for their incredible American dream, and that's just an amazing thing to see.
Will the president need to fight a tide in the Senate? How are you feeling about John Thune working with your father to execute his agenda?
You know, I'm very hopeful. I mean, I think we have control of the Senate because of my father. John Thune's able to be the majority leader because of my father, because he got a bunch of other people over the line. That was, you know, on his coattails. He overperformed all of those people. He was able to get them over the finish line. So I hope that's a mandate in the Senate. Traditionally, the Senate has been sort of the weak end of the Republican Party, a lot more rhinos than I'd like. I think I see the shift there. Now, because of the 6-year terms, that takes longer. So I'm really hopeful that they will work well together. I'm really hopeful that leadership there understands what the American people want.
Great points all around. Don, good to see you. We so appreciate it. Trump Organization Executive Vice